Today is my 66th birthday. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, right on schedule, same as always. I got out of bed quietly, trying my best not to wake my son and daughter-in-law in the room next door. A sliver of dawn seeped through the bedroom curtains. I fumbled for the navy blue housecoat I've worn for 5 years, the fabric washed so thin it was almost white, but it was comfortable. In the kitchen, I moved with practiced ease, starting on breakfast. My son, Michael, likes pancakes, while his wife, Tiffany, prefers something more like a continental breakfast. I cracked 3 eggs, sliced some ham, and put milk on the stove to warm. By 6:30, the aroma of breakfast filled the entire apartment. "Mom, why are you up so early again?" Michael mumbled, rubbing his eyes as he walked into the kitchen, still wrapped in the warmth of his bedclothes. "Just a habit," I said with a smile, flipping a pancake. "Go get washed up. It'll be ready in a minute." Tiffany shuffled in wearing slippers. She glanced at the dining table, her brow furrowed slightly. "Mom, Michael has an important meeting today. He should probably eat something with more nutritional value." My hands paused for a fraction of a second. Then I nodded. "All right, I'll keep that in mind for tomorrow." In truth, I knew Michael didn't have any important meeting. Tiffany was just being critical, as was her habit. Over the past 6 months, her attitude towards me had grown more and more impatient, from the cautious politeness at the beginning to an almost undisguised disdain now. But I didn't say anything, just quietly filed it away. After breakfast, Michael rushed out the door without so much as a happy birthday. Tiffany sat on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. I cleared the dishes and began cleaning the apartment. "Mom," Tiffany said suddenly, looking up. "You're 66 this year, right?" "That's right. Today's the day," I replied, pretending to be nonchalant as I wiped down the coffee table. 66. That's an age when you should be enjoying life." Her voice was syrupy sweet, intentionally so. "Look at Mrs. Henderson from down the hall. She retired last year and went on a trip around the world. So carefree." I stopped wiping and looked up at her. Tiffany's makeup was flawless. A smile played on her lips, but her eyes were cold. "I'm fine right here. Helping you two with the cooking and cleaning is nice, isn't it?" I said softly. Tiffany's smile faltered for a moment. "Mom, you've spent your whole life chained to a stove. Don't you think that's boring? Michael's career is stable now. You should start living for yourself for once." I didn't answer immediately. I continued wiping the coffee table, my blurred reflection staring back at me from its polished surface. Graying hair, crow's feet at the corners of my eyes, a slightly stooped back. I certainly looked the part of a standard old woman. "Just think about it," Tiffany said, standing up. The sharp click of her high heels echoed on the floor. "Michael and I will be back tonight to celebrate your birthday with you." After she left, I stood alone in the center of the living room, looking around the home I'd lived in for 10 years. I had picked out every piece of furniture, cleaned every corner. The walls were covered with photos of Michael from his childhood to now, chronicling every step of his growth. I ran my hand over a picture frame, the cool glass chilling my fingertips. In the afternoon, I received a phone call from an old friend, Carol. "Eleanor, happy birthday. 66 is a big one. What kind of surprise did the kids plan for you?" Carol's voice was full of life. "I don't know yet. They said they'd be back tonight to celebrate," I answered, trying my best to sound cheerful. "I'm so envious of you. Your son and daughter-in-law are so devoted. My ungrateful son packed me off to a nursing home last year," Carol sighed. "You've got it good." After hanging up, I sat on the balcony, lost in thought. The sun shone through the glass, warming my body, but failing to dispel the chill that was slowly spreading through my heart. In the evening, I started preparing dinner. I made Michael's favorite BBQ ribs, Tiffany's preferred pan-seared salmon, and even baked a special birthday cake. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. The food was reheated again and again, but they never came back. At 9:30, the doorbell finally rang. I hurried to answer it, only to find a delivery man standing there. A package for Miss Eleanor Vance. I signed for a small box. Inside was an elegant cake with "Happy Birthday, Mom" written on it. The card had Michael's sloppy signature. I placed the cake on the dining table and looked at the spread of cold dishes. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. Just as I was about to start cleaning up, I heard the sound of the lock turning. "Mom, we're home." Michael pushed the door open, an unnatural smile on his face. Tiffany followed behind him, carrying a shopping bag. "Happy birthday." Michael gave me a perfunctory hug. "Something came up at the office last minute. We had to work late." Tiffany handed me the shopping bag. "Mom, this is for you." I took the bag. Inside was a cheap silk scarf and a bottle of hand cream. "Thank you." "I love it," I said with a smile, even though I had 3 unopened bottles of the exact same hand cream in my cabinet. "Mom, don't worry about that now," Tiffany said, stopping me as I was about to reheat the food. "We need to talk to you." My heart sank, but my face showed nothing. "What is it?" Michael wrung his hands, his eyes darting around. "Mom, look, you're getting older. It's too much for you to be doing all this housework every day." Tiffany and I were talking. "Mom, you should go see the world," Tiffany cut in, her smile sweet. "Being cooped up in this house all the time is no way to live." I stood frozen, feeling the blood turn to ice in my veins. Her words were like a knife, gently slicing through the surface-level harmony we had maintained for years. "What are you trying to say?" I asked softly. "We signed you up for a senior travel group," Michael said quickly. "A 7-day Caribbean cruise. It leaves tomorrow. We've already packed your bags." Only then did I notice a familiar suitcase standing by the door. It was part of my wedding set, one I'd used for over 40 years and couldn't bear to replace. "It's so sudden," I heard my own voice, surprisingly calm. "It's a rare opportunity, isn't it?" Tiffany came over and linked her arm through mine affectionately. "You've worked hard your whole life. It's time to enjoy yourself." I looked at her perfectly manicured nails resting on my rough hand. The stark contrast stung my eyes. "All right," I nodded. "I'll go pack a few personal things." "No need, Mom," Michael said hastily. "We've got everything ready for you. The tour group provides all meals and lodging. You just need a few changes of clothes." Tiffany was already pushing me towards the door. "It's getting late. You should stay at the hotel arranged by the travel agency tonight. It'll be more convenient for the morning departure." Just like that, I was half pushed, half escorted out of my home. Standing in the elevator, I looked at my son's shifting gaze and my daughter-in-law's phony smile, and suddenly, I understood everything. The moment the elevator doors closed, I heard Tiffany's voice, thick with relief. "Finally, she's gone." The night wind was cold. I stood at the entrance of the apartment complex, dragging that old suitcase. The streetlights stretched my shadow long and made it look exceptionally lonely. I opened the suitcase to check. Inside were just a few old clothes, some toiletries, and a bottle of blood pressure medication. My wallet, ID, and phone were on my person. That, I supposed, was their only act of consideration. But they had forgotten one thing, or rather, they never knew. I hailed a taxi. "The Ritz-Carlton, please," I told the driver. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, probably wondering if this plainly dressed old woman knew what kind of place that was. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I'm very sure," I replied, my voice holding a resolve he couldn't understand. Outside the window, the city's neon lights blurred past. I touched the card in my inside pocket, and a cold smile formed on my lips. "Michael, Tiffany, you think you've gotten rid of a useless old woman. You have no idea you just personally pushed away the true owner of this apartment and the source of funds for your comfortable life." The golden lobby of the Ritz-Carlton was brilliantly lit. The receptionist was visibly taken aback when I walked in, dragging my old suitcase. "Good evening. How may I help you?" Her smile was professionally polite, but her eyes lingered for a second on my washed-out collar. "I'd like a suite." "For a long-term stay," I said. "Our executive suites start at—" I cut her off by sliding a black card across the counter. "I'll start with 1 month." The receptionist's expression instantly shifted to one of reverence. "Of course, Miss Vance. You are one of our most valued clients. I'll arrange it for you immediately." 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a suite on the 68th floor. The entire city skyline spread out before me beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Arthur, it's me, Eleanor Vance." My voice was no longer the disguise of a timid old woman. It's time to launch the sunset plan. After hanging up, I took an old-fashioned key from a hidden pocket in my suitcase, gently tracing the pattern on its surface. This key opened a safe deposit box at the bank, which held all the documents I had quietly accumulated over the years. Tomorrow, when Michael and Tiffany think I've finally been swept out of their lives, they will receive a series of unexpected messages. Their car loan and mortgage will suddenly need to be repaid by them, their credit cards will be deactivated, and the deed to the condo they live in will show, in bold letters, my name. I raised the glass of champagne the hotel had sent up, toasting the night view outside my window. Happy birthday, Eleanor Vance. A new life begins. The morning sun streamed through the floor to ceiling windows of the suite, waking me in the soft, massive bed. For a moment, I was disoriented. For 66 years, I had been accustomed to the firm mattress at home. Suddenly sleeping in such a luxurious room, my body felt a little out of sorts. I reached for the nightstand, and my hand touched the cool surface of my phone. The screen lit up, showing 5 missed calls, all from Michael. I swiped the notification away, with no intention of calling back. Let him wait. Just like I had waited countless times for him to come home for dinner. The suite's bathroom was larger than the master bedroom in my son's apartment. I stood under the shower, letting the warm water wash over me. The mirror quickly fogged up, but I could still see my sagging skin and the marks left by time. For all these years, I had deliberately maintained the image of an ordinary old woman, wearing outdated clothes, using old things, and even intentionally stooping a little more. After drying off, I opened the closet. Inside hung a brand new Chanel suit, which I had the hotel concierge arrange for me last night. The dark blue tweed fabric was exquisitely tailored. Putting it on, I immediately stood taller. I then took a velvet jewelry box from the hidden compartment of my suitcase. Inside were a pair of pearl earrings and a diamond necklace. They were a gift I bought for myself on my 40th birthday, locked away in a safe deposit box all these years, never worn. Fully dressed, I looked at myself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. The meek, hard-working old woman was gone, replaced by an elegant and confident woman. I took a deep breath, picked up the room phone, and dialed the front desk. Please contact Arthur Coleman for me. Tell him Miss Vance is waiting for him in the executive lounge. The executive lounge was quiet and elegant, with only a few other guests. I chose a seat by the window and ordered a cup of English breakfast tea. Outside, the city was already awake, the traffic flowing like a river. From this height, everything seemed so small, including the apartment complex I had lived in for the past 10 years. Miss Vance, it's been a long time. I looked up to see Arthur Coleman standing by my table. He was much older than I remembered, his temples gray, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. Arthur had been my legal counsel when I started my business, witnessing my journey from nothing to a fortune. Sit. I gestured for him to take a seat. Order something to eat. We can talk while we eat. Arthur ordered a black coffee and then took a folder from his briefcase. As per your instructions from 15 years ago, all documents for the sunset plan are ready. I opened the folder. Inside was a thick stack of legal papers. Each page represented years of careful planning, properties purchased under different names, investments spread across various funds, and meticulously designed trusts. Let's start with Michael, I said, taking a sip of tea. The condo he's living in, how are the proceedings? Arthur pushed up his glasses. The deed has always been in your name. You were simply allowing them to live there rent-free. According to procedure, we can issue the notice to vacate today. Then let's do it today. My fingers tapped lightly on the table. And that BMW, it was purchased under the company's name, correct? Yes, it's a corporate asset. It can be repossessed at any time. I nodded, continuing to flip through the documents. 15 years ago, when my apparel company was acquired by a multinational corporation, I didn't squander that enormous sum of money like other new millionaires. Instead, I created the sunset plan. I diversified and concealed the majority of my assets, leaving only a small portion for family expenses. On the surface, I was an ordinary old woman living on a meager pension. In reality, my net worth was in the 9 figures. Miss Vance, are you sure you want to do this? Arthur hesitated. Once you start, there's no turning back from many of these things. I looked out the window, remembering being pushed out of my home yesterday, remembering Tiffany's increasingly harsh words over the past 10 years, remembering the growing indifference in Michael's eyes. I gave them 10 years. My voice was soft but firm. For 10 years I played the fool, endured their condescension, just to see if, without the lure of money, they truly cared about me as their mother. Arthur sighed but said no more. He knew my personality. Once I made a decision, I wouldn't change it. We discussed the execution details thoroughly. By noon, all the documents were signed. Before Arthur left, I handed him an envelope. "What's this?" "Your compensation," I smiled. "Thank you for your hard work all these years, and for keeping my secret." Arthur shook his head and pushed the envelope back. "If you hadn't helped me out when I was at my lowest, I would have gone bankrupt long ago. This is the least I could do." After seeing Arthur off, I returned to my room. The phone rang again. This time, it was Tiffany. I let it ring for a long time before answering. "Mom, where have you gone?" Tiffany's voice was filled with fake anxiety. "Michael is worried sick. Didn't you go on the tour?" "The tour?" I chuckled lightly. I changed my mind. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. "Then where are you now? We'll come pick you up." "No need," I said, gazing at the cityscape outside. "I've found a place to stay." "Mom, don't be difficult." Tiffany's tone hardened. "It's not safe for you to be out there alone. You should come back." I almost laughed out loud. Yesterday they couldn't wait to kick me out, and today they're feigning concern for my safety. "Tiffany," I said calmly, "tell Michael that someone will be contacting him today about the condo and the car." "What condo and car? What are you talking about?" I didn't answer, just hung up the phone and then turned it off. Let them find out for themselves. Let them discover that the old woman they looked down on actually held all the keys to their comfortable life. In the afternoon, I met with my financial advisor, Sarah Jenkins, in the hotel cafe. Sarah was the CFO of my company back in the day and now runs her own wealth management firm. "Eleanor," Sarah gave me a warm hug the moment she saw me. "My goodness, you've finally decided to be yourself again." I laughed and patted her back. "Yes, I'm tired of pretending after all these years." Sarah looked me up and down. This is the Eleanor Vance I remember, the powerhouse who was a force to be reckoned with in the business world. We talked for a long time. Sarah reported on the returns of my various investments over the years. When I heard the numbers, I raised an eyebrow. Even better than I expected. "By the way, Eleanor," Sarah suddenly lowered her voice, "did you know that Tiffany came to see me last year?" My coffee cup paused mid-air. "Oh? What did she want?" "She was asking about your financial situation," Sarah said with a slight frown. "She wanted to know how much you had in savings, whether you'd bought any life insurance policies, things like that. As you instructed, I just told her you were living off your pension and didn't have much put away." I nodded, not surprised. Tiffany had always been interested in my finances, dropping hints here and there over the years. She also asked what Michael would inherit if you passed away, Sarah said, looking a bit awkward. My heart felt a sharp prick, but I remained calm on the surface. She certainly thinks ahead. "Eleanor, are you really going to take back their house and car?" Sarah asked hesitantly. "Michael is your son, after all." "It's precisely because he is my son," I interrupted her, "that I need to teach him that nothing in this world should be taken for granted." In the evening, I received a call from Arthur. "Miss Vance, the notices have been delivered." Mr. Vance's reaction was intense. I could imagine the scene. Michael had never faced any real setbacks in his life. He got whatever he wanted. After he graduated from college, I bought him a condo, bought him a car, and even secretly pulled strings to help him at work. He always thought he was exceptionally capable, never knowing I was paving the way for him behind the scenes. "He threatened to sue," Arthur continued, "but he went silent after I presented him with all the legal documents." "And Tiffany?" I asked. Arthur let out a small sigh. "She said you were getting revenge, that you'd lost your mind." I chuckled softly. "Tell them they have 3 days to vacate my property. They can leave the car keys with the building's concierge." After hanging up, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the sunset. The evening glow painted half the sky red, a breathtakingly beautiful sight. The Sunset Plan. The name was quite fitting. Life is like the sun. I have entered my later years, but who's to say the sunset can't be spectacular? The phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered it and heard Michael's furious voice. "Mom, what the hell are you doing? Why are you taking the condo and the car? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me and Tiffany?" I listened calmly as he vented. When he finally paused, I spoke. "Michael, how old are you this year?" "What?" I asked. "How old are you?" 36. "Mom, why are you asking that?" 36 years old, I repeated softly. A grown man, able-bodied, with a college education, yet he relies on his mother's handouts to get by. Do you think that's normal? There was silence on the other end. "I gave you 10 years, I continued. For 10 years, I watched you take me for granted more and more. I watched Tiffany's attitude towards me get worse and worse. Yesterday was my birthday, and you couldn't even be bothered to have a single meal with me, yet you were in such a hurry to kick me out of the house." "Mom, that was Tiffany, she." "Don't shift the blame." I raised my voice suddenly. "You are my son. A grown man who can't even protect his own mother from being mistreated." Michael was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was choked with emotion. "Mom, I'm sorry. We were wrong. Can you please come home?" I closed my eyes, feeling a wave of fatigue. "Be out in 3 days. When you've truly figured out what you did wrong, then you can come find me." After hanging up, I sat on the sofa, feeling a profound emptiness. This wasn't the ending I wanted, but I had no other choice. Spoiling a child with love only ruins them. It was a lesson I should have learned long ago. It was late, but I felt no desire to sleep. I opened my laptop and logged into an email account I hadn't used in years. It was filled with messages from business partners and investment reports. I began to reply to them one by one, letting them know Eleanor Vance was back. Tomorrow, I would reappear in public with a completely new image. And for the first time, Michael and Tiffany would meet the real me. Not the hard-working, compliant old woman, but the iron lady who was once a force to be reckoned with in the business world. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I sat at the vanity in my hotel suite, carefully applying my makeup. The foundation concealed the traces of age. The eyeliner made my gaze sharper, and I chose a sophisticated, deep red lipstick. The woman in the mirror was elegant and commanding, a world away from the old woman who had been kicked out of her home just 2 days before. My phone screen lit up with a message from Sarah. "The press release is ready as you requested. It will be sent out at 10 o'clock sharp. The television interview is scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon." I replied with a simple, "Good," then dialed the hotel's front desk. "Please arrange for a car for me. I'll need it at 9 o'clock. "Certainly, Miss Vance. What model would you prefer?" "A Rolls-Royce Phantom," I said, a name I hadn't uttered in 15 years. After hanging up, I opened the closet. A dozen high-end outfits, prepared by the concierge last night, hung in a neat row. I selected a charcoal gray Armani suit with a white silk blouse. Finally, I took a Patek Philippe watch from the safe, another gift to myself for my 40th birthday, its value comparable to a small house. At 8:50, I went down to the lobby. The front desk staff did a double take when they saw me, then quickly composed their faces into expressions of utmost respect. "Miss Vance, your car is ready." The Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked at the hotel entrance, its black body gleaming in the sunlight. The driver, a young man, stared wide-eyed when he saw me. "To the Pinnacle Towers," I said coolly as I settled into the back seat. The Pinnacle Towers was the most exclusive residential complex in the city. I had bought a top-floor penthouse there 10 years ago but had never lived in it. The property had been managed and maintained by the building staff, regularly cleaned and cared for. The car moved smoothly through the streets. I gazed at the familiar scenery outside the window, my thoughts drifting back in time. 30 years ago, I was just a small-time vendor selling clothes at a street market. With a keen eye for fashion and an unyielding spirit, I built my own apparel brand, Vance Apparel, step by step. At its peak, we had over 100 stores nationwide. Later, the company was acquired, and I ostensibly retired. In reality, I shifted my focus to the world of investment, accumulating an astonishing fortune. "We're here, Miss Vance." The driver's voice pulled me back to the present. The security guard at the Pinnacle Towers saw the Rolls-Royce and immediately raised the gate. The car pulled up in front of a European-style building where the property manager was already waiting. "Miss Vance, welcome home." The manager's face was wreathed in smiles. "Your residence has been maintained exactly as you requested. It's ready for you to move in at any time." I nodded and followed her into the elevator. The penthouse was over 4,000 square feet, decorated with the utmost luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Sunlight streamed in, reflecting off the imported marble floors with a dazzling brilliance. "Very good," I said, looking around. "I'll be moving in today. Please arrange to have my luggage brought over from the Ritz-Carlton." Right away, the manager nodded eagerly. "Is there anything else you need?" "Not at the moment." I walked to the window, looking down at the city. "Oh, one more thing. Set up a home theater. I want to watch the news tonight." After the manager left, I wandered through the penthouse alone. The master bedroom's walk-in closet was larger than the living room in my son's old condo. The bathroom was equipped with a jacuzzi and a sauna. The kitchen was filled with a full suite of top-of-the-line German appliances, almost all brand new. The bookshelves in the study were lined with the books I had collected over the years, completely free of dust. I sat down in the leather chair in the study and dialed Arthur's number. "Have Michael and his wife moved out?" "Not yet." Arthur's voice held a note of frustration. "They are demanding to see you. They want to talk in person. Tell them to come to the Pinnacle Towers, Building 8, penthouse, at 7 o'clock tonight," I said coldly. "This is their last chance." After hanging up, I called Sarah. "Has the press release gone out?" "Just sent." Sarah's voice was electric with excitement. "The media is in a frenzy. Business legend Eleanor Vance returns after 15-year disappearance." "How's that for a headline?" "Not bad," I chuckled. "Send me the list of interview questions beforehand." At noon, the hotel delivered my luggage. There wasn't much, just the old suitcase and a few new outfits. I put the suitcase in a storage closet. Its mission was complete. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the television crew arrived on time. The reporter was a young woman who was visibly nervous when she saw me. "Miss Vance, it's such an honor to interview you," she stammered. "I studied your business cases in college." The interview went smoothly. I spoke about my secluded life over the past few years, my views on the current economy, and of course, the new project I was about to launch. A high-end clothing brand for middle-aged and older women. "Why choose to make a comeback now?" the reporter asked the crucial question. I looked into the camera and smiled slightly. "Because I've come to realize something. Age isn't a limitation, it's an asset. At 66, I have more experience, more resources, and a clearer vision of what I want than I did when I was younger." After the interview, the reporter quietly asked if she could take a photo with me. I graciously agreed. As she excitedly posted it to her social media, I glanced at the time on her phone. 5:40. I had a little over an hour before meeting Michael. I had the concierge arrange a simple dinner, then sat in the living room to wait. Outside the window, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the entire city. I sipped my black tea, feeling remarkably calm. At 6:50, the doorbell rang. On the security monitor, I saw Michael and Tiffany standing at the door. They were both dressed formally, but their expressions were tense. Tiffany, in particular, was constantly adjusting her hair and collar. "Come in." I pressed the button, my voice echoing through the intercom. The elevator doors opened, and they walked in cautiously. When they saw me sitting on the sofa, they both froze. "Mom." Michael's voice was filled with uncertainty. I put down my teacup. "Sit." Tiffany's eyes darted around the luxurious living room, finally landing on the Patek Philippe on my wrist. Her expression shifted from shock to confusion, and finally to a dawning, regretful comprehension. "Mom, this is your place?" Michael asked mechanically. "I own 7 properties," I said calmly. "This is one of them." Tiffany's face instantly went pale. "Tea?" I gestured to the tea set on the table. "This is authentic Da Hong Pao. Costs thousands of dollars a pound." Michael's hands began to tremble. "Mom, we didn't know." "We really didn't know. Didn't know I had money," I cut him off. And that's why you dared to treat me the way you did. If I were some poor old woman, I should just be kicked out of the house to fend for myself? No, that's not it, Tiffany suddenly spoke, her voice sharp. Mom, it was all a misunderstanding. We just wanted to give you a surprise, that cruise. Enough. I slammed my hand on the table. They both flinched. Tiffany, I know you went to see Sarah last year to ask about my assets. I know you secretly went through my drawers last month looking for my bank books. I know everything. Tiffany's face flushed crimson. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Michael, I turned to my son. From the day you were born, whatever you wanted, I gave you. You couldn't find a job after college, so I pulled strings behind the scenes. You couldn't afford a house for your wedding, so I gave you a condo. Tiffany complained the car wasn't good enough, so I bought you a BMW. And what did I get in return? Michael's eyes reddened. Mum, I'm sorry. When you kicked me out of the house yesterday, did you ever stop to think where an old woman like me would go? Did you wonder if I would end up homeless on the street? My voice trembled for a moment, but quickly regained its composure. But I should thank you. It was you who made me decide to stop pretending. I turned on the television and switched to the local news channel. My interview from the afternoon was playing, my close-up filling the entire screen. Legendary entrepreneur Eleanor Vance announces her return after a 15-year retirement. Michael and Tiffany stared dumbfounded at the screen, then back at me, as if they were seeing me for the first time. Now, let's talk business, I said, turning off the TV. The condo you live in is mine. You have 3 days to move out. I have already repossessed the car, and your credit cards have been canceled. Mom, you can't do this, Tiffany shrieked. We're your family. Family? I scoffed. Does family kick their mother out on her birthday? Suddenly, Michael dropped to his knees. Mom, I know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. Seeing my son kneeling on the floor, my heart ached. But I knew that being soft now would only harm him in the long run. Get up, I said sternly. A man should have some dignity. Don't make me lose even more respect for you. Michael slowly got to his feet, tears streaming down his face. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. I will rent a small apartment for you and prepay a year's rent. I took a key from a drawer. This is for a 1-bedroom at the Oakwood Apartments. It's even nicer than the place you lived in when you first got married. Tiffany started to say something, but Michael stopped her. Thank you, Mom, he said in a low voice. We'll move out tomorrow. One more thing, I added. I've set up a trust fund. If you can hold down a steady job at a legitimate company for 3 full years, without using my connections, without job hopping, and prove your own capabilities, the $5 million in that fund is yours. Michael's head snapped up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Remember, I stressed, on your own merit. I will have people monitoring your progress. After they left, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. My phone rang. It was the property manager. Miss Vance, the Residents Association would like to invite you to a welcome dinner tomorrow. I'll be there, I replied and hung up. I opened my messaging app and found I had been added to several resident group chats. They were all buzzing with discussions about my legendary story. Someone had even posted the video of my afternoon interview. I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of red wine. Tomorrow, the whole city would know that Eleanor Vance was back, and my son and daughter-in-law would, for the first time, truly get to know their mother and mother-in-law. A cool breeze blew the curtains, bringing a slight chill. I took a sip of wine, a small smile playing on my lips. At 66, a new chapter of my life was just beginning. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, waking me in the bedroom. I opened my eyes, taking a few seconds to adjust to the new surroundings. The penthouse at the Pinnacle Towers. This was my first morning here. The phone on the nightstand had accumulated over 20 unread messages. I glanced through them briefly. Most were congratulations from business partners and interview requests from the media. Sarah had sent a message at 3 in the morning. Eleanor, you're trending. I opened Twitter and saw the topic business legend Eleanor Vance returns was number 6 on the trending list. Clicking on it, I found reports and commentary from various media outlets on my interview from yesterday. Some praised me for being as sharp as ever, Others analyzed my business strategies, and some even gossiped about my mysterious 15-year disappearance. The most eye-catching was a post from a local blogger. Shocking reversal. Eleanor Vance, kicked out by son and daughter-in-law, makes a glamorous comeback as a secret billionaire. The post included a photo of me from behind, dragging my old suitcase in front of the Ritz-Carlton, contrasted with a screenshot from yesterday's television interview. I frowned. I hadn't expected this to be exposed so quickly. But perhaps it was for the best. It saved me the trouble of explaining. After freshening up, I chose a deep purple dress and paired it with a pearl necklace. I had to attend the Residents Association welcome dinner tonight and needed to be well dressed. Just as I finished changing, the doorbell rang. The security monitor showed it was Sarah, holding a stack of documents. "Eleanor, look at this." As soon as she entered, Sarah excitedly waved her iPad. "Your interview video has over 1 million views. 3 fashion magazines want you on their cover, and a TV station wants to do a special feature." I took the iPad and quickly scanned the data. The response was indeed much stronger than I had anticipated. "Let's put this aside for now," I said, handing the iPad back to her. "That exposé post, was that your doing?" Sarah shook her head. "Not me, but my guess is someone from the hotel or the TV station leaked it. People online are tearing into your son and daughter-in-law now." I opened Twitter and saw that the comments under the post had already exceeded 10,000. Most were condemning Michael and Tiffany for being ungrateful. Some had even doxed their employers and social media accounts. "Do you want me to handle it?" Sarah asked. "We can have the post taken down." I thought for a moment. "No need. Since it's already out, let it run its course." However, I did call Arthur. "Find out who leaked the photos. We will no longer do business with them." After hanging up, Sarah and I began discussing the preparations for the new brand. As we were studying a market research report, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Mom? It's me, Michael." On the other end, Michael's voice was on the verge of tears. "My phone has been blowing up from angry strangers. My work email is flooded. My boss just had a talk with me. I think I'm going to be fired." I was silent for a moment. "Where are you now?" At the apartment you gave us," he stammered. "Tiffany doesn't even dare to go outside. People in the complex are pointing and staring at her." "Send me the address," I said curtly. "I'll come by in a little while." After hanging up, Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Going to rescue your son?" "He's my son. After all," I sighed. "But he must learn his lesson this time." Sarah nodded. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No. You go ahead and prepare for the brand launch." I checked my watch. The residents' dinner is at 7. I'll be back before then. An hour later, I stood before a small apartment in the Oakwood Apartments complex. Compared to the 3-bedroom condo they used to live in, this place was indeed modest. I rang the doorbell, and it opened almost immediately, as if they had been waiting right by the door. Michael looked haggard and exhausted, his eyes red and swollen. He clearly hadn't slept all night. Tiffany was hiding in the bedroom, not daring to come out. "Mom." Michael's voice was hoarse. "Those people online, they don't know anything." "They don't know what?" I asked coldly. "They're saying you're ungrateful. They're saying you used deceitful means to get rid of your own mother." Michael hung his head like a child caught doing wrong. I walked into the small living room and sat on the fabric sofa. "Michael, do you know why I kept my wealth a secret all these years?" He shook his head. "Because I've seen too many families destroyed by money." I looked directly into his eyes. I wanted to know, without the factor of money, how my son and daughter-in-law would treat me. Michael's face turned beet red. "Mom, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." "Wrong about what?" I pressed. "I shouldn't have listened to Tiffany and kicked you out. I shouldn't have been so cold to you. I shouldn't have—" "No," I interrupted him. "Your biggest mistake was forgetting that I am, first and foremost, a person, an individual equal to you, and only then am I your mother. You took my sacrifices for you for granted and saw my tolerance as weakness." Michael was stunned, as if he had never considered it from this perspective. "Now, let's talk about your job." I changed the subject. "The company is firing you." "My boss," he said, "the negative publicity is too damaging. He might have to—" Let me go, Michael mumbled. I nodded. I understand. You have two choices. First, I do nothing, and you accept the consequences. Second, I call your boss, but you must resign afterward. Michael looked up in surprise. Why? If my boss isn't going to keep me, why should I resign? Because I want you to find a job based on your own abilities, I said firmly. Start from the bottom and prove your worth. Otherwise, you'll never grow up. He was silent for a long time, finally saying in a low voice, I'll choose the second option. I called his boss and briefly explained the situation. The man on the other end obviously recognized my voice, and his tone immediately became deferential, repeatedly assuring me he would handle it properly. All right, I said to Michael after hanging up. Submit your resignation within a week, then start looking for a new job. Remember, you are not to use my name or my connections. Michael nodded silently. Just then, the bedroom door creaked open and Tiffany peeked out timidly. Mom, her voice was as thin as a mosquito's buzz. Can I talk to you? I glanced at my watch. You have 5 minutes. Tiffany came out and stood before me. She wore no makeup, and the dark circles under her eyes were prominent, completely devoid of her usual polished look. Mom, I know I was wrong. She twisted her fingers. I shouldn't have treated you like that. You were wrong to be too impatient, I said calmly. You were always asking about my assets, going through my things, for no other reason than to find out how much you would inherit after I died. But you couldn't wait, could you? Tiffany's face went deathly pale, her lips trembling, unable to speak. I am 66 years old, I continued. I'm in good health, with no major illnesses. With modern medicine, living another 20 or 30 years is not out of the question. You couldn't wait that long, so you tried every way to get rid of me, thinking you could get the money sooner. No, that's not it. Tiffany denied weakly, but her eyes darted away. It's all right, I stood up. Time will prove everything. Michael is my son, and I will eventually leave him something. As for you, I gave her a meaningful look that will depend on your behavior. Leaving the apartment, I felt a wave of exhaustion in the car. The phone rang again. It was the property manager confirming the evening's dinner arrangements. After a brief reply, I told the driver to take me to a salon downtown. For tonight's appearance, I had to look my best. The service at the salon was impeccable. 3 hours of full treatments made me look at least 5 years younger. While getting my hair done, I scrolled through my phone and noticed a new development in the public opinion. Someone had dug up Tiffany's social media accounts, which were filled with photos of her flaunting her wealth and complaining about my old-fashioned and tacky ways. Worse, someone found a video from Michael's company's annual party. On stage, he was thanking his mother for raising him, but offstage, he was caught on a hot mic telling a colleague the old woman is driving me crazy. The comments under these new revelations were filled with fury. Ungrateful leech, biting the hand that feeds you, they deserve to be kicked out. I sighed and turned off my phone. Although these things were true, the taste of being publicly shamed was not pleasant. Back at the Pinnacle Towers, the property manager personally greeted me at the entrance. The welcome dinner was held in the clubhouse banquet hall. When I arrived, dozens of residents were already waiting. The moment I entered, the noisy hall fell silent, then erupted in warm applause. Miss Vance, welcome to the Pinnacle Towers family. The head of the Residents Association, a retired professor in his 60s, warmly shook my hand. You are the pride of our community. For the next 2 hours, I was constantly introduced to various neighbors, accepting their compliments and praises. Some praised my business achievements, others admired my parenting philosophy, though I considered my education of my son a failure, and some young women even asked for my secrets to success. Halfway through the dinner, the host invited me on stage to speak. I briefly thanked everyone for the welcome, offered a few suggestions for community improvement, and then changed the subject. Recently, some of my family matters have been exposed and have attracted a lot of attention. As a mother, I am heartbroken. As a public figure, I also have a responsibility to say a few words. The hall was silent. Everyone was all ears. Family education is the most important lesson in life, and I have clearly not done a good job. My voice was calm and steady. but I do not regret withdrawing my financial support from my son. A man in his 30s should learn to be independent, to be grateful, and to respect others whether they are a billionaire or a beggar." Thunderous applause followed. I saw many people nodding in agreement, and a few women quietly wiped away tears. After the dinner, just as I got home, I received a call from Michael. "Mom, I saw your speech." His voice was choked with emotion. I don't know what to say." "Then think about it carefully," I said softly. "Think about what you truly want and what kind of person you want to become." Hanging up the phone, I stood by the window, looking at the countless lights of the city. Today's media storm was just the beginning. Tomorrow, more challenges awaited me. The preparations for the new brand, the pursuit of the media, invitations from business partners, and mending the relationship with my son. At 66, my life was rebooting. This time, I would live for myself. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I woke up naturally as usual. The bedroom at the Pinnacle Towers was even quieter than the hotel, with only the faint hum of the central air conditioning. I drew back the curtains. The eastern sky was just beginning to turn a pale white, and the entire city was still asleep. I changed into my workout clothes and took the elevator downstairs. The landscaping in the complex was beautiful, and the early morning air carried the fresh scent of grass and trees. As I jogged along the rubber track, my thoughts gradually cleared. Today was the first official meeting for the relaunch of Vance Apparel, and I had to be fully prepared. Back in the penthouse, after a shower, I chose a beige pantsuit and tied my hair into a neat bun. The woman in the mirror had sharp eyes and a straight posture, showing no signs of being 66 years old. At 7:30, Sarah arrived punctually, holding a hot breakfast and a thick folder. "Eleanor, you look wonderful today." She placed the soy milk and dumplings on the dining table. "I've handled the media. As you requested, I've postponed all 10 interview requests from major outlets until next week." I nodded, flipping through the documents she brought while eating breakfast. Market research, brand positioning, initial design sketches. Sarah's work was always dependable. "By the way," Sarah suddenly lowered her voice, "is your son doing okay?" I put down my chopsticks. His boss called yesterday, said they'd give him a decent severance package. He should start looking for a new job today. "You're really not going to help him?" Sarah asked curiously. "With your connections, just one phone call. Then he'll never grow up," I shook my head. "A man in his 30s should learn to stand on his own 2 feet. Sarah nodded thoughtfully and said no more. At 8:30, we arrived at the temporary office in the central business district. It was a spacious floor in an office building that I had just rented last week. More than 20 employees were already there. When they saw me enter, they all stood up and greeted me. "Good morning, everyone." I walked to the front and surveyed the room. Today is the first day of the Vance Apparel relaunch. 15 years ago, I built this brand with my own hands, and then I sold it. Now, I'm bringing it back. The employees applauded, many with excitement shining in their eyes. Most of them were young and had only heard the legends of the business Iron Lady. Today, they finally saw her in person. The meeting lasted the entire morning. The design team presented their initial sketches, the marketing department reported on their promotional plans, and the supply chain manager introduced potential manufacturing partners. I listened carefully to each person's presentation, asking questions and offering suggestions. Years of business intuition told me this team had potential. During the lunch break, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Is this Miss Vance?" It was a young woman's voice. "I'm a reporter from the Financial Daily. I'd like to schedule an exclusive interview with you. Please contact my assistant, Sarah Jenkins," I said politely but firmly. "She will arrange a time." As soon as I hung up, another call came in. This time it was an old friend, the CEO of a rival apparel group, wanting to have dinner and discuss a partnership. I declined, saying we could talk after the project officially launched. The third call was from Arthur. "Miss Vance, there's a situation I need to report to you." His voice was somewhat serious. "Your daughter-in-law, Tiffany, she has contacted the media." My brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "She's been feeding stories to a few tabloids, claiming you are abusive towards your son, that you're a control freak, and even forged documents to seize their assets." Arthur paused. Of course, this is pure slander. We can sue. I walked to the window, watching the endless stream of traffic below. Tiffany's counterattack had come faster and more foolishly than I had anticipated. Gather the evidence first. Don't rush to sue, I said after a moment's thought. Find out which media outlets she contacted, and then have a quiet word with their editors. Understood, Arthur replied. Also, one more thing. Your son went to a few interviews today, but it seems they didn't go well. He sighed. Keep an eye on it, but do not intervene. Hanging up, I rubbed my temples. The smoke from the family war was beginning to spread, and I had to fight on the business front at the same time. A 66-year-old body wasn't what it used to be, but my will was stronger than ever. In the afternoon design workshop, I was fully focused, reviewing every sketch and suggesting revisions. Right in the middle of a heated discussion, Sarah hurried in and whispered in my ear. Eleanor, there's a problem. Tiffany's interview has been published. The internet is in an uproar again. I signaled for the meeting to pause and picked up a tablet. The screen displayed a newly published gossip piece. Exclusive. Eleanor Vance's daughter-in-law accuses her of abusing son, unveils dark secrets of a wealthy family. In the article, Tiffany tearfully described how I controlled my husband's life, manipulated my family with money, and even hinted that I had mental health issues. The accompanying photo was a candid shot of Michael and me in the neighborhood, deliberately taken from a bad angle to make me look menacing. The comment section was a chaotic mess. Some people called Tiffany shameless, while others began to question if my actions had been too extreme. Worse, a few accounts claiming to be insiders started spreading rumors that my company's original success was due to unethical practices. Should we issue a statement? Sarah asked with concern. I shook my head. Let's proceed with our work as planned. This kind of gossip is like a wildfire. The more you try to stamp it out, the more it spreads. After the meeting, I had the driver take me to a place on the outskirts of the city, the cemetery where my husband, Michael's father, was laid to rest. His gravestone was simple, with only his name and the dates of his life. I knelt, brushed away the fallen leaves, and placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums on it. Charles, I said softly, I spoiled our son, and now I'm correcting that mistake. If you're watching over us, please don't blame me for being harsh. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, as if in response. I stood before the grave for a long time, reminiscing about the hardships of our youth, the struggles of starting a business, the loneliness after my husband's death, and the moments of my son's upbringing. By the time I left the cemetery, it was already dark. I had over a dozen missed calls on my phone, most from unknown numbers, and 2 from Michael. I called my son back. It rang for a long time before he picked up. His voice was hoarse, as if he had been crying. I saw Tiffany's interview, I said directly. There was a moment of silence on the other end. I didn't know she would do that. We've been fighting all day. Michael, I interrupted him, you are a grown man. You should have your own judgment. Tiffany is your wife, but I am your mother. If you can't give me even the most basic respect, then there's nothing more for us to talk about. Mom? No, that's not it, he said urgently. I've already told her to take it down, but those media outlets, the problem isn't the media, it's the two of you, I sighed. Forget it. I'm too tired today. I have to visit the new factory site tomorrow. We can talk about this later. Hanging up, I felt a deep sense of exhaustion. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Straight home, Miss Vance? No, I checked my watch. Go to the office first. I have some documents to take care of. When I returned to the temporary office, I found the lights were still on. Pushing the door open, I saw Sarah and a few core team members still working overtime. Eleanor, why are you back? Sarah asked in surprise. Just came to get something. I walked to my office and took a file from the safe. It was a copy of the contract from 15 years ago when the company was acquired, with a photo of me and the acquiring CEO. In the photo, I was in my prime, with a determined gaze, full of vigor. Back then, Michael was just a college student, naive and passionate, who would come to me for help with his friends' problems. I put the photo back and suddenly made a decision. Sarah, I said, walking out of the office, my voice firm, notify the media. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, we will hold a press conference at the old Vance Apparel factory. I'm going to respond to these rumors myself. Sarah's eyes lit up. Okay, I'll arrange it right away. Should I prepare a statement for you? No need. I'll speak off the cuff. I smiled slightly. By the way, contact Michael. Tell him the location of the press conference. Whether he comes or not is up to him. That night, I worked late into the night, meticulously planning every detail of the press conference. This was not just a simple refutation of rumors. It was the official comeback declaration of Eleanor Vance and Vance Apparel. It was 1 in the morning when I got home, but I felt no sleepiness. Standing by the window, I looked at the city's night view, 1,000 thoughts running through my mind. After tomorrow's press conference, regardless of whether Michael showed up, our relationship would enter a new phase. At 66, I had thought I could enjoy a quiet retirement, spoiling my grandson. But fate had given me a chance to start over, not just in my career, but also in remolding my family relationships. The phone screen lit up. It was a text from Michael. Mom, I'll be at the press conference tomorrow. There are some things I want to say in person. I didn't reply, just set the phone aside. When the sun rises tomorrow, everything will be different. As an entrepreneur and as a mother, I was ready to face the new challenges. Today, I woke up even earlier than usual. It was the day of the press conference, my official declaration of return to the business world. I chose a deep blue pantsuit paired with a white silk blouse and a string of pearls. The woman in the mirror had a sharp gaze and a poised posture, showing no hint of her 66 years. I carefully concealed the fine lines under my eyes with concealer and applied a low-key mauve lipstick. Today's makeup had to be dignified but not aggressive, exuding authority without appearing confrontational. My phone screen lit up with a message from Sarah. Over 30 media outlets have arrived, more than expected. The venue is set up. Per your instructions, we've kept the rustic feel of the old factory. I replied with a simple good, and then called my driver. Half an hour later, the black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of the old Vance Apparel factory. This factory, located in an industrial park on the outskirts of the city, had been vacant since the company was acquired 15 years ago. Ivy clung to the red brick exterior walls, and the large iron gates were rusted, but the interior had been cleaned up. Stepping through the gate, I was hit by a familiar yet distant scent, a mixture of fabric, dye, and thyme. Eleanor, Sarah hurried over to meet me. The media is set up in the front section. We've kept some of the old machinery as a backdrop, just as you requested. I nodded, looking around. A simple stage had been set up in the center of the factory floor, with a banner behind it that read, Vance Apparel Relaunch Press Conference. Dozens of reporters were already seated, their cameras and microphones all aimed at the stage. As I entered, the camera flashes instantly became a blinding wall of light. Ready? Sarah asked in a low voice. I took a deep breath. Let's begin. Sarah walked to the podium and announced the start of the conference, briefly introducing the history of Vance Apparel and its relaunch plans. Then, her tone shifted. Recently, some personal matters concerning Mrs. Worings. Vance have been widely reported in the media, much of which is untrue. Today, Miss Vance will personally address your questions. I walked onto the stage. The flashes erupted again. I waited a few seconds for the room to quiet down before I spoke. Good morning, friends from the media. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here today. My voice was steady and powerful. First, I want to formally announce that Vance Apparel, the brand that holds half a lifetime of my work, will be returning to the market in 3 months. For the next 20 minutes, I detailed the new brand's positioning, target audience, and initial product lines. The reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks, occasionally raising their hands to ask questions. The atmosphere was professional and orderly. Now, my tone shifted again. I would like to respond to some of the recent media reports about my personal and family life. The room immediately fell silent. Everyone was listening intently. First, regarding the relationship with my son, I looked directly into the camera lenses. As a mother, I love my son. As an entrepreneur, I have high expectations for his career. And as an ordinary person, I expect basic respect. I took several photos from my folder and passed them to the reporters in the front row to circulate. These are photos of my son's family on overseas vacations, purchasing luxury goods, and moving into their new condo over the past 10 years. And this, I held up the last photo, is a picture of me on my birthday last year, eating a bowl of noodles alone in a small diner. As the photos were passed around, I could hear murmurs from the crowd. I am not showing you these to gain sympathy, but to illustrate a fact. In family relationships, material contribution and emotional return are often disproportionate. My voice remained calm. When my son and daughter-in-law decided to kick me out of my home, they were unaware that the condo they lived in, the car they drove, and even a portion of their daily expenses were all funded by the old woman they thought was living on a meager pension. A wave of shock rippled through the room. A reporter raised his hand. "Miss Vance, are you saying you've been secretly supporting your son's family all this time? Why did you choose to hide your true financial situation?" "Good question," I nodded. "I hid my wealth for 2 reasons. First, to test whether my son truly cared for me as his mother without the lure of money. Second, to encourage him to learn to be independent rather than living off his mother's fortune." "So, what is your response to the accusations your daughter-in-law, Tiffany, recently made to the media?" another reporter asked. I smiled faintly and took a USB drive from my purse, handing it to Sarah. "Please play the contents of this drive." The projector screen lit up, showing a security video. In the footage, Tiffany was rummaging through my drawers, taking out bank books and documents to photograph them. The date stamp showed it was last month. "This is from the security camera in my living room," I explained. "I installed it for security purposes. I never expected it to capture this." Next, a recording began to play. Tiffany's voice came through, clear as day. "How much money does that old hag actually have? We have to find a way to get her out of the house soon. Michael is such a spineless coward, he can't even handle this one little thing." When the recording ended, the room was dead silent. I said calmly, "This recording came from a purse I gave to my daughter-in-law 3 months ago. I had accidentally left a small recording pen inside. My intention was to understand her true feelings. I never expected." I didn't finish the sentence, letting the silence speak for itself. "Miss Vance," a female reporter raised her hand. "Don't you think it's a bit extreme to monitor your family like that?" "Perhaps," I admitted openly. "But when you notice a sudden change in your family's attitude towards you, when you find your personal belongings are constantly being disturbed, when you overhear them calling you an old hag behind your back, what would you do?" The reporter fell silent. "That's all for my response today," I said, gathering my papers. "The new Vance apparel product launch will be in 3 months, and I welcome all of you to attend. As for my family matters, I hope this is the end of it, to give my family a chance to reflect and change." After the press conference, reporters swarmed around me, shouting questions. Sarah and the security guards cleared a path for me. I walked quickly to the small office at the back of the factory. It used to be my office, and the original desk, chair, and bookshelf were still there. Just as I closed the door, I heard a commotion outside, followed by Sarah's urgent knock. "Eleanor, your son is here." I took a deep breath. "Let him in." The door opened. Michael stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes red and swollen. He had clearly been crying. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, a stark contrast to his usual polished appearance. "Mom." His voice was barely a whisper. I motioned for him to sit down, then said to Sarah, "Give us half an hour." Sarah nodded and closed the door, leaving just my son and me in the office, along with a 15-year gap between us. "You saw the press conference." I broke the silence. Michael nodded, tears streaming down his face again. "Mom, I didn't know Tiffany would do those things. I didn't know she went through your things. But you did want me to move out, didn't you?" I asked calmly. He lowered his head, twisting his fingers. "Yes, but I just thought, you should have your own life. I didn't expect—" "Michael," I interrupted him, "look at me." He raised his head, his eyes filled with tears. "You are 36 years old. You have a college education and the ability to work." I looked him straight in the eye. "Tell me, Why does a 36-year-old man need to live on his mother's handouts? Why would he kick his elderly mother out of her home? Why can't he give the most basic respect to the person who gave him life and raised him? Each question was like a hammer blow. Michael's shoulders slumped lower with each one. I don't know, he choked out. I thought it was all what I deserved. You always gave me everything. So you took it for granted. My voice finally trembled slightly. Michael, do you have any idea how hard your father and I worked to start this business? I opened my briefcase, took out a stack of old photos, and pushed them towards him. In one photo, a much younger, pregnant me was haggling at a wholesale market. In another, your father and I were running a stall at a night market, our breath visible in the cold winter air. In another, our first small shop had just opened, and the three of us were squeezed into a tiny 100-square-foot room. 3 months after you were born, I was already carrying you on my back to source inventory. I pointed to one of the photos. To save money on diapers, I made them myself from old bedsheets. Your father worked his day job, then helped me at the store at night. He was so tired he could fall asleep standing up. Michael's trembling fingers traced over the photos, tears dripping onto the yellowed paper. Later, the business grew, and we had money, but we had even less time, I continued. Remember your third-grade parent-teacher conference? Your father and I were out of town on a business trip and couldn't make it. You didn't speak to us for a whole month. He nodded, the memory slowly returning. We wanted to make it up to you, so we bought you the best toys, the most expensive clothes. Gradually, you got used to taking, and we got used to giving, I sighed. That was our biggest mistake as parents. Silence filled the office, broken only by Michael's suppressed sobs. Outside, sunlight streamed through the dusty window, creating a beam of light in which countless tiny dust motes danced. Mom, after a long time, Michael finally spoke. I want to start over. Can I? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took another envelope from my bag. This is a letter your father wrote to you before he passed away. You were only 18 at the time. I thought you were too young, so I kept it for you. I never found the right time to give it to you. Michael took the envelope and carefully opened it. The paper was yellowed, but the handwriting was still clear. As he read, he suddenly burst into tears, crying like a lost child who had finally found his way home. I went over and gently hugged him. He leaned on my shoulder, his whole body shaking with sobs. Dad, he said. He was proudest not of how big the business got, but of having a son like me, he said between sobs. He said he hoped I would become an honest and kind man, but I stroked his hair, just like I did when he had nightmares as a child. It's not too late to understand now. But how can I make it up to you? He looked up, his eyes filled with regret. After everything I did to you. First, I wiped away his tears. Find a real job. Start from the bottom and prove your own worth. Second, think hard about what kind of life you want, what kind of marriage you want. At the mention of marriage, his eyes flickered. Tiffany, she is your wife. That is between the two of you, I said calmly. But remember, someone who truly loves you will not encourage you to hurt your mother. Michael nodded silently, carefully folding his father's letter and putting it in his pocket. Mom, can I still see you often? He asked timidly. I smiled. Of course. But you'll have to make an appointment. I'm a very busy woman. He managed a tearful smile, which then turned serious. I will prove it to you. I will prove that I'm worthy of being your son. Go on, I patted his shoulder. The press conference should be wrapping up. The media is still waiting outside. We walked out of the office together. In the factory, the reporters were still waiting for a final photo opportunity. When they saw us emerge together, mother and son, the flashes went off again. I put my arm around my son's shoulder and smiled for the cameras. At that moment, I knew the storm was far from over, but at least we had taken the first step towards reconciliation. At 6 o'clock in the morning, my alarm hadn't gone off yet, but I was already awake. Today was the signing day for the new Vance apparel factory, a crucial step in officially launching the project. I chose a beige linen suit paired with a light blue blouse, a look that was both professional and approachable. The woman in the mirror looked energetic, showing no signs of having slept only 5 hours the previous night. Over the past month, I had grown accustomed to the high-intensity work schedule, arriving at the office at 7 in the morning, leaving at 10 at night, with no exceptions for weekends. My phone screen lit up with a message from Sarah. Signing documents are ready. Arriving at the industrial park at 9. Media has been arranged, starting at 10 sharp. I replied, received, and then called my driver. Half an hour later, the black Rolls-Royce Phantom was heading towards the industrial park on the east side of the city. Outside the window, the early summer sun shone on the fresh green leaves, sparkling with the light of hope. A red banner hung at the entrance of the industrial park, warmly welcoming Vance Apparel. The park director was there to greet me personally, welcoming us with a broad smile. "Miss Vance, this factory has been renovated exactly to your specifications. Ventilation and lighting are excellent, and all fire safety facilities have been updated," the director explained as we walked. "The surrounding amenities are also complete, with staff dormitories and a cafeteria in the next building." I carefully inspected every corner, suggesting modifications as needed. This factory was smaller than the old one, but the layout was more rational, suitable for our initial scale. "We need to add 2 more emergency exits in the sewing area," I said, pointing to the blueprint, "and an additional fire door between the cutting area and the warehouse." The director nodded repeatedly, instructing his assistant to take notes. After the tour, we officially signed the lease agreement in the conference room. Under the flashing lights of cameras, I shook hands with the park director, marking a substantial step forward for the relaunch of Vance Apparel. After the signing ceremony, Sarah stayed behind to handle the follow-up details, while I rushed to my next appointment, interviewing the design team. In the temporary office, 3 young designers were already waiting. I quickly reviewed their resumes and portfolios, then posed a practical question. If I want to design a summer dress for women over 50 that is comfortable, stylish, and can conceal figure flaws, how would you approach it? The first designer talked at length about international fashion trends. The second showcased complex design sketches. But the third, a petite young woman named Chloe, asked me a question in return. "Miss Vance, could you first tell me what your mother, or women of your age, care about the most?" My eyes lit up. "Good question. Sit down, let's talk." After a 2-hour interview, I hired Chloe on the spot, along with another designer, David, who had 10 years of experience. One was daring and inquisitive, the other experienced and steady, a perfect complement. After a simple takeout lunch, I spent the afternoon interviewing candidates for finance, human resources, and marketing positions. It wasn't until 7 in the evening that the last candidate left. "Eleanor, you interviewed 11 people today. Aren't you exhausted?" Sarah asked with concern, handing me a cup of hot tea. I rubbed my temples. "It's all right. The team is crucial. I have to be personally involved in building it." Just as we were speaking, my phone rang. It was a text from Michael. "Mom, I found a job. A sales assistant at a small trading company. The salary isn't high, but the boss said there are opportunities for promotion." "Starting tomorrow?" I replied with a smile. "Congratulations. Work hard." Over the past month, Michael had genuinely been trying to change. He moved out of the small apartment I provided and rented an even cheaper place on his own. He spent his days sending out resumes and going to interviews. Even after facing rejection after rejection, he didn't give up. Last week, he even came to the office specifically to apologize again for the past. As for Tiffany, I heard that after a huge fight with Michael, she went back to her parents' house. I didn't want to ask too much. That was a matter between husband and wife. "What's the schedule for tomorrow?" I asked Sarah. 9 in the morning, meeting with fabric suppliers. 11 o'clock, equipment manufacturer's demonstration of new machinery. 2 in the afternoon, Sarah's report was cut short by an urgent knock on the door. The receptionist rushed in, flustered. "Miss Vance, a Mr. Peterson is insisting on seeing you. He says he's your in-law." I frowned. "Let him in." A moment later, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit strode in, a fake smile plastered on his face. It was Tiffany's father, a minor official in some government agency, always looking down his nose at everyone. "Eleanor, my dear, it's been too long. He extended his hand enthusiastically. I heard you're back in business, and things are booming. I shook his hand politely but coolly. What can I do for you? Oh, come now, we're all family. Can't I just drop by to see you? He sat down, making himself at home. Well, actually, it is a small matter. You see, Tiffany and Michael, the young couple, are having a little tiff, and as a father, it breaks my heart. I cut off his long-winded speech. Get to the point. What do you want? The smile on his face froze for a second, then returned in full force. So direct, Eleanor. All right. The thing is, Tiffany knows she was wrong and wants to make up with Michael. But you know young people, they're too proud. I was thinking, maybe you could step in. That's a matter for them to resolve. I will not interfere, I said calmly. Well, yes, but... He rubbed his hands together. Michael is living in that dump of a place now, and his salary is so low. Tiffany has been spoiled since she was a child. I finally understood his purpose. You're here to ask for money for your daughter. How can you say that? He feigned surprise. I was just thinking, with your vast enterprise, you could easily arrange a manager position for Michael, and the little couple would be back together in no time, right? I stood up, my voice icy. Mr. Peterson, please listen carefully. First, Michael's job is his own choice, and I respect it. Second, whether your daughter comes back is between her and Michael. I will not get involved. Third, if you ever come to my office again with such a request, I will have security escort you out. His face turned red, then white, and finally twisted in anger. Eleanor Vance, don't you go too far. My daughter marrying into your family was a step down for her. Now that you have a little money again, you think you can... Sarah, I pressed the intercom button. Call security. After Mr. Peterson stormed out, Sarah looked at me with concern. Eleanor, do you think that was wise? It's fine, I waved my hand. With people like him, the more you give, the more they take. The next morning, I arrived at the office at 6:30 as usual, only to find a figure squatting by the door. It was Michael, wearing an inexpensive suit and holding a briefcase. Mom, he stood up immediately when he saw me. I was wondering if I could catch a ride with you to work. The bus takes 3 transfers. I glanced at my watch. What time do you have to be at your office? 8:30. Get in. I opened the car door. But starting tomorrow, you need to figure out your own transportation. On the way, Michael excitedly told me how he got the job. The boss said that even though I don't have experience, my attitude is sincere, and he's willing to give me a chance. I listened quietly, nodding occasionally. I saw a long-lost light in his eyes, the joy of being recognized for his own efforts. Mom, he suddenly lowered his voice as we neared his destination. Did Tiffany's father come to see you yesterday? Yes, I answered briefly. I'm so sorry. I had no idea he would, Michael said, embarrassed. Tiffany called me last night. She said, you humiliated her father. And what did you say? I glanced at him. He was silent for a moment. I told her my mom isn't that kind of person. If she did that, there must have been a good reason. A small smile touched my lips. That small step forward was more precious than any apology. After dropping Michael off, I continued on to my meeting with the fabric suppliers. For the next 2 weeks, I was constantly on the move, finalizing design plans, purchasing equipment, hiring staff, and developing marketing strategies. By the time I returned to my penthouse at the Pinnacle Towers, I was often so tired I would fall asleep immediately, but my body seemed to have been injected with new vitality. The passion for entrepreneurship from my youth had returned. Every small progress excited me. Sarah said I had more energy than many young people. I joked that this was my second spring. A month later, the factory renovation was complete, the equipment was installed, and the first batch of employees had finished their training. We decided to hold a small opening ceremony. On the day of the ceremony, the sun was shining brightly. The entrance to the new factory was adorned with flower baskets, and the employees, in uniform, stood in neat rows. After a brief speech, I personally cut the ribbon and then led everyone on a tour of the new factory. Miss Vance, this way, please. The production manager led me to the sewing area. This is our first batch of sample garments. designed according to your specifications. I carefully inspected the workmanship and details of each sample, suggesting revisions. These were summer clothes for middle-aged and older women. They had to be comfortable and practical, yet stylish and elegant, and the price couldn't be too high. Raise the waistline by an inch. Widen the cuffs. The colors can be a bit brighter, I told the designer. Women our age love beauty too. It's just that there are too few suitable options on the market. After the tour, I gathered the core team in the conference room. Everyone, today is a great day, but the challenges we face are just beginning. I looked at the young people in the room. Vance apparel was once glorious, but that is in the past. Now, we must create a new legend. Their eyes shone with the passion of entrepreneurs. I felt as if I was seeing my 30-year-old self. We start official production next Monday. The first batch of orders has already been confirmed, I announced the production plan. At the new product launch in 3 months, I want the entire industry to see our strength. After the meeting, Sarah stayed behind to discuss the details of the launch with me. Just as we were talking, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Grandma?" A tender voice, choked with tears, came through. "It's Leo. I don't feel good." My heart clenched. Leo was my 6-year-old grandson. He usually lived with Tiffany at her parents' house. "Leo, what's wrong? Where are you?" I asked urgently. "My head hurts. I'm hot. Mommy's not home. Grandpa's not home either." The child's voice grew weaker. "Tell Grandma the address. I'm coming right now." After writing down the address, I immediately told the driver to change course. Sarah wanted to come with me, but I told her to stay and continue working. "Eleanor, what if?" "There are no what-ifs," I said, already at the door. "That's my grandson." Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of an ordinary apartment building. I ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. No one answered my knock, so I shouted, "Leo, Grandma's here." A faint cry came from inside. I immediately called 911 and an ambulance while telling my driver to find a way to open the door. 5 minutes later, the police and paramedics arrived at the same time. With the police as witnesses, we broke down the door. Leo was curled up on the sofa, his face flushed and his body burning hot. A paramedic immediately took his temperature, 103.6 degrees. "He needs to go to the hospital right away," the medic said grimly. Without a second thought, I got into the ambulance with him. On the way, I tried to contact Michael and Tiffany, but one was in a meeting and the other's phone went unanswered. At the hospital, the doctor diagnosed Leo with acute tonsillitis, which had caused the high fever. He needed to be admitted. When I was filling out the paperwork, the nurse asked, "What is your relationship to the child?" "I'm his grandmother." "And the parents?" "I can't reach them at the moment," I replied curtly. "I will cover all the expenses. Please use the best medicine." After getting Leo settled, I finally got through to Michael. Hearing my son's frantic voice, I suddenly realized that no matter how many conflicts we had between us, our love for the child was the same. An hour later, Michael rushed into the hospital room, out of breath. When he saw me sitting by Leo's bed, his eyes immediately turned red. "Mom, thank you," he choked out. I stood up to give him my seat. The doctor said it's nothing serious. He'll be fine after a couple of days of observation. You stay with him. I'll go buy some necessities. Walking out of the room, I saw someone sitting on a bench in the hallway, Tiffany. Her makeup was smudged, and she smelled of alcohol, clearly having just come from some social engagement. Our eyes met, but neither of us spoke. Finally, she lowered her head and hurried into the hospital room. I sat on a bench outside the hospital entrance for a long time, watching the people come and go. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue on the white hospital building. On my phone, Sarah had sent a dozen work-related messages, but I didn't reply to a single one. At that moment, I was just an ordinary grandmother, worried about her grandson. The nights in the hospital felt especially long. The hallway lights were a sterile white, and the smell of disinfectant hung in the air, a scent that never quite went away. The silence was broken only by the occasional cough or footstep. I sat in the chair by Leo's hospital bed, watching his small, sleeping face. The fever reducer had worked, his breathing was even, and his forehead was no longer burning. Michael was dozing at the foot of the bed, while Tiffany, after a brief appearance, had left again, claiming she had an important engagement. At 3 in the morning, a nurse came to do her rounds. She quietly told me I could go to the family lounge to get some sleep. I shook my head and handed her a cup of coffee I had just bought. "You're such a good grandmother," the nurse whispered. "A lot of grandparents aren't willing to stay up all night." I smiled but didn't explain. In truth, I cherished moments like this. Since Leo was born, I hadn't spent much time with him. Tiffany always found excuses to keep him away from me, and I was busy. Busy with what? Thinking back now, it was all just trivial matters. As dawn broke, Leo woke up. He blinked his big eyes and called out weakly, "Grandma." I leaned over immediately. "Grandma's here. Do you feel sick? Do you want some water?" He shook his head and reached his small hand out from under the blanket, grabbing my finger. "Grandma, you smell like Mommy used to." The child's innocent words brought a lump to my throat. I gently stroked his hair. "When you get better, Grandma will take you to buy a new toy, okay?" "Okay." Leo's eyes lit up, then dimmed again. "But Mommy said Grandma doesn't like us." Michael, who had woken up at some point, sat bolt upright when he heard this. "Leo, don't talk nonsense." "I'm not." The child's lip quivered. "Mommy was talking to Grandpa. She said Grandma is stingy." "That's enough." Michael cut him off, then shot me an embarrassed look. "Mom, kids say silly things. Don't take it to heart." I didn't answer, just continued to gently stroke Leo's hair. Children don't lie. They only repeat what they hear. Over the years, how many bad things had Tiffany said about me behind my back? How had she slandered me in front of my own grandson? After the doctor's morning rounds, he said Leo was recovering well and could be discharged after another day of observation. Michael went to handle the paperwork while I stayed in the room to play with a jigsaw puzzle with Leo. "Grandma, how does this piece fit?" Leo asked, holding up a puzzle piece in frustration. I took the piece and helped him find the right spot. "See, this blue piece should be the sky, so it goes up here." "Grandma, you're so smart!" Leo clapped his hands. "Mommy never plays puzzles with me. She says it's too much trouble." Another pang of sadness hit me. Tiffany's patience with her child seemed to be as thin as her character. When Michael returned, I suggested that Leo stay with me for a few days after being discharged, so I could take care of him. Michael hesitated for a moment but agreed. "I'll explain it to Tiffany," he said, rubbing his temples wearily. "Mom, about what Leo said." "There's no need to explain," I interrupted. "I just hope you understand that whatever conflicts we adults have, they should never affect the children." He nodded heavily, a flicker of resolve in his eyes. I had a feeling that this incident might become a turning point in their marriage. At noon, I had the driver take Leo and Michael to my penthouse while I rushed to the office. As much as I worried about my grandson, work couldn't be neglected. In the office, Sarah was waiting anxiously. "Eleanor, you're finally back. We have a huge problem." It turned out that while I was with Leo, our competitor, a company called Aura Apparel, had suddenly announced they were moving up their new product launch. The date and venue were exactly what we had planned, but their launch was 2 weeks earlier than ours. "They're clearly targeting us," Sarah said angrily, "and their design style is very similar to ours. Someone must have leaked our plans." I carefully reviewed the teaser video Aura had released. Indeed, several designs were strikingly similar to our concepts, but the market is a battlefield, and complaining solves nothing. Contact the venue. Move our launch up to next week, I decided decisively. Notify the design department. I want a completely new collection, and I want them to work on it overnight. Sarah's eyes widened. Next week? That's too soon. We either meet the challenge head-on or we sit back and wait to be defeated. I picked up the phone. Now get me in touch with my friends at the television stations. I'm going to do an exclusive interview. For the next 72 hours, the entire company operated on adrenaline, working around the clock. The designers stayed up all night creating new concepts, the pattern makers worked overtime to produce samples, and the marketing department replanned the entire launch event. As for me, I coordinated all the moving parts while giving interviews to several major media outlets to build buzz for our sudden launch. On the third night, when I finally returned to my penthouse at the Pinnacle Towers, I found Leo and Michael playing with building blocks in the living room. Seeing me come in, Leo cheered and ran over. "Grandma, look at the castle Dad and I built." I picked up my grandson and kissed his cheek. "It's wonderful. Even better than the clothes Grandma designs." Michael came over and took my briefcase. "Mom, you haven't rested properly these past few days, have you?" "Work is important," I said lightly, then noticed how unusually tidy the apartment was. Tiffany was here. Michael's expression grew complicated. She came to pick up Leo, but he didn't want to go with her. I raised an eyebrow but didn't press for more details. After dinner, Leo went to bed, and Michael and I sat on the balcony, drinking tea. "Mom, how are the preparations for the launch coming along?" Michael asked. "They're fine," I replied curtly, then changed the subject. "What are your plans with Tiffany?" He was silent for a long time before finally sighing. "I don't know. The fact that she didn't even care when Leo was sick. I'm just so disappointed." I didn't interject, letting him speak his mind. "I've been thinking about what you said, about marriage and life choices." He looked up, his eyes filled with confusion. "If a marriage makes you become someone you're not, and it hurts the people closest to you, is it time to end it? Only you can make that decision," I said softly. "But remember, whatever you choose, your mother will support you." His eyes reddened, like a lost child who had finally spotted a lighthouse. The next morning, as I was getting ready to go to the office, I received a call from an unknown number. "Miss Vance, it's Tiffany." Her voice on the other end was unusually calm. "Can we talk?" "Just the two of us." I arranged to meet her at a coffee shop near my office. When I arrived, she was already waiting in a corner booth, her makeup impeccable but unable to hide the dark circles under her eyes. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked directly, forgoing any pleasantries. She took a deep breath. "First, I want to apologize for what I did before. Second, I hope you can convince Michael not to divorce me." I was slightly taken aback. "Michael has already decided to file for divorce?" "Tiffany," I said calmly. "First, I have no right to interfere with Michael's decision. Second, the problems in your marriage didn't happen overnight, and I can't solve them alone." But he only listens to you now. That's why she suddenly became agitated, then forced herself to calm down. "Aunt Eleanor, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I shouldn't have gone through your things, or gone to the media. There are many things you shouldn't have done," I interrupted. "But the most critical one is that you shouldn't have turned Michael into an ungrateful son, and you certainly shouldn't have taught Leo to be distant from his grandmother." Her face flushed, then paled. I can change. You should be saying that to Michael, not me." I stood up. "I have to get to the office. If there's nothing else, I'll be going." "Wait," she called out hastily. If Michael and I get back together, will you support us financially like before?" I almost laughed out loud. Even at a time like this, all she cared about was money. "Tiffany," I looked her straight in the eye, "you still don't get it. The problem was never about money. It's about respect and love. If you truly loved Michael, you would support his independence, not turn him into a man-child who depends on his mother." Leaving the coffee shop, my feelings were mixed. On one hand, I was relieved by my son's awakening. On the other, I understood the impact of divorce on a child. But ultimately, this was a problem they had to solve themselves. Back at the office, the new sample garments were ready. I inspected each one carefully, suggesting revisions. This collection completely subverted the previous style, focusing on a new traditional concept that perfectly blended classic elements with modern tailoring. "This is brilliant," I praised them sincerely. "This is the standard Vance apparel should have." The designers' tired faces broke into smiles. Their sleepless nights over the past few days had not been in vain. The day before the launch, we held our final rehearsal. Models, lighting, music, narration, every detail was polished again and again. Sarah was worried I was overworking myself, but I insisted on being personally involved. "Eleanor, you haven't had a proper rest in 3 days," Sarah said with concern. "You have a full day of events tomorrow." "It's fine," I smiled. "When I was starting my business, I often went a week without a full night's sleep. This is nothing." When I got home that night, Leo was already asleep. Michael was waiting for me in the living room, holding a document. "Mom, I wanted you to take a look at this." He handed it to me. "I'm planning to start my own business." I was surprised and took the document. It was a simple business plan. Michael planned to open a small building materials store, funded by his savings and a small business loan. "Why the sudden desire to start a business?" I asked. "It's not sudden," he said seriously. "I've been thinking about it for a long time. My current job is stable, but it has no future. I studied architecture in college, so I know a little about the building materials market." I read the plan carefully, asking questions from time to time. Michael answered them all fluently. He had clearly done his homework. The plan wasn't perfect, but the ideas were clear, the budget was realistic, and the risk assessment was sound. "Do you need me to invest?" I asked, closing the folder. He shook his head. "I want to do this myself. If I fail, I'll consider it tuition paid. If I succeed, it'll prove I'm capable of something." I smiled with relief. This was my son, principled, thoughtful, and no longer dependent on his mother's wallet. "I wish you success," I patted his shoulder. "If you need any advice, you can always ask me." The next day, the launch was a resounding success. The new designs received unanimous praise from the media and buyers, and the on-site orders far exceeded our expectations. When I walked onto the stage to give my thanks, wearing a custom-designed kippah, the applause was deafening. In the audience, I saw Michael sitting in the front row with Leo, both of them clapping proudly for me. In a corner, Tiffany stood alone, her expression complex. After the launch, at the celebration dinner, an unexpected guest approached me, Mr. Joe, the owner of Aura Apparel. "Eleanor, congratulations," he said with a fake smile. "I never expected you to completely change your design direction in such a short time. Truly impressive." I smiled in return. "The market is a battlefield, Mr. Joe. One must always have a few tricks up one's sleeve. You didn't really think I would keep all my final designs on the company computers, did you?" His smile froze. "That's right. I had long suspected a mole in the company, so I kept all the key designs on my personal computer, seen only by my most trusted team members." "Eleanor, you're as cunning as ever," Mr. Joe chuckled dryly. "But the business world is unpredictable. We'll see who comes out on top in the long run." I look forward to it. I raised my glass in a toast, watching him walk away. After the dinner, Michael offered to drive me home. In the car, Leo was already asleep in my arms. "Mom, you were amazing today," Michael said with genuine admiration. "Seeing you up on that stage, so radiant, I suddenly understood what real success is." I gently stroked Leo's soft hair, not answering. What is success? Is it the praise of the media? The flood of orders? Or is it the maternal bond, finally restored after so many trials? Perhaps it is all of these things. 3 days after the launch, I finally allowed myself the luxury of sleeping in. The intense work of the past week had taken its toll. My back ached, my throat was dry, and even my finger joints felt stiff. I slowly sat up in bed. Sunlight already filled half the room. A 66-year-old body certainly wasn't what it used to be, but my heart felt lighter and more joyful than it had in the last 10 years. There were a few unread messages on my phone. Sarah reported on the follow-up orders from the launch. The designers asked about the direction for the next season. And there was one from Michael. "Mom, are you feeling better today? Leo misses you. Can we come over for dinner?" I replied to all the work messages and then called Michael back. 6 o'clock tonight. I'll have food delivered from the hotel. That Italian place Leo likes. After getting ready, I sat on the balcony and read the newspaper. Several outlets had extensive coverage of Vance Apparel's return, with overwhelmingly positive reviews. One column in particular caught my eye. Eleanor Vance, from homemaker to business titan and back to a dual return of family and career. The article reviewed my entrepreneurial journey, analyzed the strategy of this brand relaunch, and finally touched upon my reconciliation with my son. The Eleanor Vance who once ruled the business world ultimately chose forgiveness and family. This may be the wisest investment of her life. I put down the paper and looked into the distance. Forgiveness? Yes. Forgetting? Impossible. The hurt and betrayal had left permanent marks on my heart, like the calluses on my hands from the early days of my business. They no longer hurt, but I could still feel them. In the afternoon, I went to the office. The employees all greeted me, their eyes filled with genuine admiration. The battles we fought together over the past week had forged a strong bond between us. "Miss Vance, why don't you rest a few more days?" asked a young man from the marketing department. "I can't sit still." I smiled and waved him off. "How are the new orders coming in?" "They've exploded," the production manager interjected excitedly. "We're booked for the next 3 months. We need to consider expanding the production line." In the conference room, I held a short meeting with the core team to discuss expansion plans. Some suggested acquiring a small factory, others proposed outsourcing part of the production. The debate was lively. "First, let's rent the factory unit next door," I finally decided. "Hire 30 skilled workers, train them for a month, and then we'll reevaluate whether to acquire in 3 months. After the meeting, Sarah stayed behind to talk to me alone. "Eleanor, there's something I need to tell you." She seemed hesitant. "Tiffany, she went to see Michael's boss. Said Michael was a man of bad character, things like that." I frowned. "When did this happen?" "Yesterday. But the boss didn't pay her any mind. He told Michael about it instead." Sarah rolled her eyes. "She's really something else, trying to sabotage her own husband." I thought for a moment. "Does Michael know you were going to tell me this?" Sarah shook her head. "He doesn't know I came to you. I guess he didn't want you to worry." I sighed. The process of divorce is often the ugliest part, especially when one party refuses to let go. Even though Michael didn't tell me, as his mother, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. "Contact Arthur for me," I told Sarah. "Have him prepare a legal statement regarding commercial defamation, just in case." It was 5:30 when I got home. I took a quick shower and changed into comfortable loungewear. At 6 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. "Grandma." Leo threw himself into my arms the moment he came in. "I missed you so much." I kissed his little cheek. "Grandma missed you too. Look, I bought you a new puzzle. 1,000 pieces." Michael stood in the doorway, holding a cake box. "Mom, I brought you your favorite chestnut cake." Dinner was pleasant. Leo chattered away about his adventures in kindergarten, while Michael talked about the preparations for his new business. I noticed he deliberately avoided mentioning Tiffany, so I didn't ask. After dinner, Leo played with his new puzzle in the living room, while Michael and I had tea on the balcony. "Mom, I found a storefront," he said excitedly. "It's in the building materials market on the west side. The rent is $5,000 a month, and the location is good." "Do you have enough capital?" I asked. "Enough. I sold the car, and with my savings, it's enough to operate for 3 months." He paused. "Mom, this time, I want to rely completely on myself." I nodded, feeling proud of him. The trials of the past few months had matured Michael significantly. He was beginning to understand the true meaning of success. "By the way," he hesitated for a moment, "Tiffany might come and harass you. If she does, just ignore her." I took a sip of tea. "I know about her visit to your boss." Michael looked up, surprised. "How did you—" "I didn't want you to worry about this mess. You are my son. Your problems are my problems." I put down my teacup. "Do you need my help?" "No," he said firmly. "I can handle it. In fact, I've already filed for divorce with the court." I was silent for a moment. "Have you thought it through?" He looked down at his hands. "I've thought a lot these past few days. Tiffany and I were a mistake from the beginning. She was interested in my family's money, and I was just taken in by her looks and flattery." I didn't interrupt, letting him continue. "She doesn't understand me at all, and she doesn't respect me." Michael's voice grew more resolute. "Mom, do you know what she said to me on our wedding day? She said, 'From now on, all the money your mom gives you is mine to manage.'" I should have woken up then. The night grew deeper. The light on the balcony illuminated Michael's well-defined profile. For a moment, I saw his father's shadow in him, the same stubbornness, the same integrity. "Custody of Leo?" I asked softly. "I will fight for it," Michael said, his voice firm. "Tiffany doesn't know how to take care of a child. You saw it for yourself. She didn't even care when Leo had a fever." Just as he spoke, the doorbell rang sharply. We looked at each other, puzzled. Who could it be at this hour? Through the peephole, I saw Tiffany standing outside, her makeup perfect, but her expression dark. I opened the door, and she pushed her way in. "I knew it. I knew you'd be here," she said, her voice shrill. The sharp clicks of her heels echoed on the marble floor. "Michael, what is the meaning of this? Filing for divorce behind my back?" Leo ran over at the sound of the commotion, but immediately hid behind me when he saw Tiffany. This subconscious action made Tiffany's face even uglier. "Tiffany, let's talk outside." Michael stood up, his voice calm. "Don't shout in front of the child." "Oh, so now you're thinking about the child?" Tiffany sneered. "Why didn't you think about him when you were filing for divorce?" I knelt and said to Leo, "Sweetheart, why don't you go to Grandma's room and play with your puzzle for a little while? Grandma, Daddy, and Mommy need to talk." Leo nodded obediently and ran off with his puzzle box. I closed the door and turned to Tiffany. "Speak calmly. There's no need to scream." "Oh, playing the good grandmother now, are we?" Tiffany looked at me scornfully. "If it wasn't for you pulling the strings, would Michael divorce me?" "Tiffany," Michael's voice was sharp, "don't talk nonsense. This divorce was my decision. It has nothing to do with Mom." "How does it have nothing to do with her?" Tiffany's voice rose. "Ever since your glamorous comeback, you've changed. You used to listen to everything I said. Now, it's my mom said this. My mom thinks that. Have you been weaned yet?" I took a deep breath, suppressing my anger. "Tiffany, I didn't want to get involved in your marital problems, but since you brought me into it, I'll say a few things." The living room fell silent, with only Tiffany's heavy breathing. First, Michael is a grown man. He is responsible for his own decisions. Second, if you truly loved him, you would support his personal growth, not treat him like an ATM and an object to be controlled. Third, I glanced at Michael. No matter what you two decide in the end, Leo's well-being must come first. Tiffany's expression changed several times, finally settling on a twisted smile. "Nice words. The two of you are in this together, just trying to get rid of me, aren't you? Fine. I'll agree to a divorce, but on my terms." "What terms?" Michael asked warily. $5 million in cash, custody of Leo, and, she looked around my penthouse greedily, this apartment. I almost laughed out loud. The audacity. "Impossible," Michael said flatly. "First, I don't have that kind of money. Second, I will not give up custody of Leo. Third, this apartment belongs to my mother. It has nothing to do with you." "How does it have nothing to do with me?" Tiffany said, indignant. "After all these years of marriage, don't I deserve compensation for my pain and suffering? I gave birth to Leo, so of course he stays with me. As for the apartment, your mother is so rich, what's one apartment to her?" I shook my head and walked towards the study. "You two talk it out. I'm going to check on Leo." In the study, Leo was engrossed in his puzzle, seemingly unaffected by the shouting outside. I sat beside him, helping him find pieces. "Grandma?" He suddenly looked up and asked, "Are Mommy and Daddy going to separate?" My heart tightened. "Why do you ask that, sweetie?" "My friend at school, Amy, her Mommy and Daddy used to fight all the time, and then they separated," Leo said innocently. "Now Amy has 2 homes. She goes to her daddy's on the weekend and stays at her mommy's during the week." I didn't know how to answer. Children today understand the concept of divorce far better than we think. "No matter what happens with Mommy and Daddy, they will always love you," I finally said. "And Grandma will always love you." Leo nodded, as if he half understood, and went back to his puzzle. "Such a good child." I sighed to myself. In the wars of adults, it is always the children who are hurt the most. About half an hour later, there was a knock on the door. Michael came in, looking tired but calm. "She's gone?" I asked. Michael sat down next to Leo and stroked his son's head. I made it clear to her, the terms of the divorce will follow legal procedures. I'll give her what she's entitled to, and not a penny more for what she's not. Did she agree? Of course not. Michael gave a wry smile. She said she'd make me regret it. Let her try. Leo looked up. Daddy, are you going to move out? Michael froze for a moment, then hugged his son tightly. No, buddy. Daddy will never leave you. We might live in 2 different places in the future, but Daddy will always be your daddy. Watching the father and son embrace, I quietly left the study. I had a missed call from Arthur on my phone. I called him back. Miss Vance, the matter you instructed me on has been handled, Arthur said. Regarding Mr. Vance's divorce case, I've engaged the best family lawyer. Also, the statement regarding commercial defamation is ready and can be released at any time. Thank you, I said briefly. Tomorrow at 10 in the morning, gather the core team for a meeting. I have something important to announce. Hanging up, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Life is like that. One problem is solved, and a new challenge appears. But compared to the night I was kicked out of my home a month ago, I now had more courage and strength to face difficulties. The next morning, in the company conference room, I announced 2 decisions. First, the establishment of the Vance Foundation, dedicated to supporting single-parent families and working mothers. Second, the creation of a Vance Apparel employee stock ownership plan so that every employee could share in the company's growth. And one final decision, I said, looking at the surprised faces of my employees. Starting next month, Sarah Jenkins will take over as CEO of the company. I will retain only the position of chairwoman. Sarah's eyes widened. Eleanor, I'm 66 years old. I can't be on the front lines forever, I said with a smile. The future belongs to you, young people. After the meeting, Sarah stayed behind, her eyes red. Eleanor, I'm afraid I can't do it. You can. I patted her shoulder. When I started my business, I was 2 years younger than you are now. If you have any problems, you can always ask me. I'll always be here to support you. In the afternoon, I met Michael at a coffee shop. He brought a revised business plan, more detailed and practical than the last one. Mom, can you take a look and see if there are any other issues? He asked earnestly. I read it carefully and offered a few suggestions, which he humbly accepted. During our conversation, I noticed his gaze was more determined, his speech more confident. Adversity truly does make a person grow. Mom, Michael finally said after a moment of hesitation, about that trust fund, the conditions you mentioned. 3 years of steady work, proving my own ability. I nodded. That promise still stands. No, that's not what I mean. He shook his head. I'm saying, even without that $5 million, I will still work hard. I want to prove to you that your son is not useless. Tears welled up in my eyes. Silly boy. Your mother never thought you were useless. You just needed a little time to find your own way. When we left the coffee shop, the sun was shining brightly. Michael held the car door open for me and suddenly said, Mom, thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. I hugged my son, not saying a word. Some feelings are too deep for words. A year later, at the Vance Apparel Anniversary Gala, I stood in the center of the banquet hall, wearing a custom-designed deep red kippah, accepting congratulations from everyone. In the past year, the company's performance had far exceeded expectations. We not only reclaimed our original market share, but also successfully entered the high-end retail market. Eleanor, congratulations. An old client toasted me. Still as sharp as ever, truly impressive. I smiled my thanks, my gaze sweeping across the bustling hall. Sarah was talking with a group of young designers, her demeanor poised and confident, completely at ease in her role as CEO. The marketing director was giving an interview to the media, his words witty and engaging. In a corner, Michael was chatting animatedly with several suppliers. His building materials store was doing well. Although still small, it was already profitable. Grandma! A small voice called out from behind me. I turned around to see Leo, in a little tuxedo, running towards me with a piece of cake in his hand. I saved this for you. I knelt and took the cake, kissing his small cheek. Thank you, sweetheart. Where's your daddy? Over there. Leo pointed towards Michael. Daddy said he's talking big business today. I smiled and shook my head. In 1 year, Michael had transformed from a coddled mama's boy into a responsible father and small business owner. The divorce battle had lasted 6 months. In the end, he won custody of Leo. Tiffany received a small apartment and a settlement. I heard she had already remarried. Mom, Michael walked over, looking dapper and full of energy in his suit. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Liu. He's in high-end building materials and is very interested in our collaboration proposal. I stood up and shook hands with Mr. Liu, exchanging pleasantries. During the conversation, Mr. Liu was full of praise for Michael. "Eleanor, your son has a real head for business. The ideas he proposed were all very professional." I smiled with satisfaction, not mentioning that just a year ago, this same son was a man-child who couldn't even pay his own rent. Sometimes, a person's growth needs a catalyst. My cruelty seemed to be the push Michael needed. Halfway through the gala, the host invited me on stage to give a speech. I briefly reviewed the year's achievements, thanked the team for their hard work, and then announced an important decision. Starting today, I will officially step back and serve only as a consultant to the company. The daily operations will be entirely in the hands of the young team. I looked at the surprised faces in the audience. It's time for me to enjoy my retirement. Thunderous applause erupted. Sarah came on stage with tears in her eyes and hugged me. A few old employees also gathered around excitedly. At that moment, I felt a sense of completion not just in my career, but in my life. After the gala, Michael drove me home. Leo was already asleep in the back seat, a smear of cake frosting on his cheek. "Mom, are you really planning to retire completely?" Michael asked softly. I looked at the neon lights outside the window. "The company is running well. You have your own career. It's time for me to live for myself for a few years." "What about the trust fund?" I smiled. "Don't worry. The promise still stands. Stick with it for another 2 years. Show me how far you can go." He nodded, his eyes shining with determination. The car stopped at the entrance of the Pinnacle Towers. Michael insisted on seeing me up to my apartment. In the elevator, he suddenly said, "Mom, thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to start over." I patted his shoulder, not answering. Some gratitude needs no words. Back in my apartment, I stood by the window, looking at the city's night view. Life at 67 felt like it was just beginning. On the table was a travel magazine, open to a picture of the snow-capped Swiss Alps. Next week, I would begin my trip around the world. Starting with Europe, then Asia, I would slowly make up for all the beautiful scenery I missed in my youth because of work. My phone screen lit up. It was a voice message from Leo. "Grandma, Daddy said he can take me to Disneyland for summer vacation. Can you come with us too?" I smiled and replied, "Okay, Grandma will go with you." Putting down the phone, I picked up the photo frame from my nightstand. In the picture, a young me and my husband stood in front of our first small clothing store, holding a 1-year-old Michael in our arms. Back then, our eyes were filled with hope and anticipation for the future. "Charles," I said softly to the photo, "our son has finally grown up. You can rest easy now." Outside the window, a bright moon hung high in the sky, its silver light blanketing every corner of the city. Tomorrow would be another new beginning.